Welcome to today's episode of Direct Mail Automation School, the podcast for marketers who are looking for an edge as they deploy direct mail and omni-channel marketing campaigns. I'm Dennis Kelly, CEO of Postalytics, the leading direct mail automation platform designed for marketers to deploy automated direct mail and omni-channel marketing campaigns with the speed, integration, and analytics of digital marketing. Today, our guest, Mike Porter, is joining us. Mike, welcome, Mike.
Hi, Dennis. Good to be with you.
Great. Well, just a little bit of background on Mike. He's the president of Print Mail Consultants and PMC Content Services. Their focus is on raising awareness and nurturing leads through well-executed content marketing strategies. Mike is an industry advisor, author, and business communications expert with a consistent track record of driving inbound marketing, even for limited resource companies. Mike's passion for customer communications, including billing, regulatory notices, and marketing materials, is reflected in his column In the Trenches in the Mailing Systems Technology magazine, offering valuable insights, tips, and trends. Mike, it's great to have you on Direct Mail Automation School. We've known each other a long time, and I know you're a true expert in the direct mail marketing area, and over recent years become much more attuned with what's going on with direct mail automation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we met several years ago initially, and been able to connect on several occasions. So I'm pleased to be able to chat with you today here.
Great. You've had a really long and successful career in print marketing in a kind of a broad sense. Tell us how you got started and how you ended up in your current role at Print Mail Consultants.
Yeah, sure. I started in the service bureau business a long time ago. I spent over 2 decades doing things like customer statements, like bills, insurance EOBs, mostly transactional kinds of documents, but some direct mail as well. We did some nonprofits, we did some fundraising, all kinds of things, and that got me into an area where I learned about a lot of different industries and a lot of different print applications and how it was all done. Now, this was back at a time when our technology was pretty crude compared to what we have today. It was mainframe computers, and doing just about anything involved code. Just centering a piece of text on a page, involved some codes. So, which was actually good because it allows me to see and understand what's going on under the hood. So even though we've got great tools now that do a lot of those things for us, I still have a pretty good understanding of what's actually going on there behind the scenes. After the Service Bureau, I worked for a couple of companies in the document business, Xerox, and some with Bell and Howell. And then I started consulting in about 2006, and started working with companies that do high volume documents, helping them with their document operations and workflow. And I did that for quite some time. Started actually doing content marketing for my own purposes about the same time in 2006. Started doing some newsletters, email newsletters, and publishing some content. Started working for the magazine that you mentioned there in about 2010. I wrote a book in there somewhere. And then for about the last 15 years, I've just been working mostly with small and medium-sized companies that need help with brand awareness and lead nurturing and lead development and thought leadership, and using informational custom content to help them do that. So I create the content and I put together strategies for them.
Well, that's great. So you've really had a very kind of wide and varied career in the print business and then non-print marketing channels as well. Reflecting specifically to more of the print and mail world, you've seen, I'm sure, a ton of change. And then there are probably some things that are consistent as well. So from your perspective, let's talk about a few of those things that, while there may be a lot of changes are consistent, and then some things that are really fundamentally new that you've seen happen.
Sure. Yeah, you bet. Well, obviously, so much has changed. I mean, the technology has made everything easier and better. I mean, I can remember a time when consumers were impressed when they got a computer letter that included their name in the body of the letter, usually in all caps, frequently overused. But that was the technology of the day, and that impressed people. Today we're far beyond that, both in the product that we put out, and part in the way of the direct mail or the communications that we generate, but also the process. Back in my service bureau days, we ran printed and mailed newsletters for car dealerships across the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And we would have to coordinate the copy and the contents of those newsletters via overnight delivery. Federal Express back then. Today you can have people worldwide collaborating simultaneously on a single document, get things done a lot quicker and a lot easier. So the just not the way that we do things has just changed so dramatically. Digital printing and the document composition software has enabled us to do a lot more things to personalize documents and include variable data and to segment mailings and those kinds of things. And we can collect and deploy vast amounts of data that we never had access to before, and that grows continuously, the amount of data that's available to people. So those kinds of things are all new. Um, the other thing that I think is really important to understand is the role of direct mail has changed. It's not the only game in town anymore. We have lots of different channels that we can use to communicate with customers, and mail is just one of them. I think of direct mail now as either an on ramp or an off ramp to the digital environment. So it's an on ramp when you use direct mail to get someone's attention and direct them to a landing page on the internet, for instance, with using QR codes or personal URLs or web addresses, where that conversation can continue and the marketing can continue using methods that we really can't do in direct mail, like video and social media and things like that. Where mail becomes an off ramp is when you've kind of lost touch with the community, with a customer in that digital world. Maybe they've stopped opening your emails or they're not interacting anymore on social media. So then you can use direct mail to re-engage with those customers and get them back into the fold. Mail's really good about that because it gets their attention. It stands out as something that they can respond to. And it's easy to find those people because if they've moved and left a forwarding address, well, we can find those with mail. You can't do that with email. If someone has abandoned an email address and got a new one, you'll never know, and you'll never figure out what that is until they give it to you. So there's some advantages to using mail to get people back into that digital conversation, and I think that's really important to understand. What hasn't changed, I think, in mail over the years is that marketers still use marketing copy and images and offers, and targeted lists in order to generate a result, to get a response. Those kinds of things are still in use. There's still the way that we do things. It's just that the tools that we use to get there make life a lot easier and open up that possibilities that probably weren't there before.
Yeah, I think that that on ramp and off ramp analogy is really a great one, and it really illustrates the role that direct mail plays in an omni-channel approach to marketing. right? Where the goal is to get people online, because when they go online, they can be tracked uh, and can be presented with all sorts of interactive content. Um, but because everybody's doing that, it makes it hard, right, to get them to your properties, to your own media and your own website, and so direct mail plays such a great role in interrupting kind of the day-to-day pattern of folks, both in that on-ramp and off-ramp in the omni-channel world.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The competition there to get someone's attention, if you're starting in digital, is really tough. I mean, it's hard to get somebody's attention, and to keep it. And so there's some advantages to mail that some I think in some cases people have forgotten.
Yeah, no doubt. Drilling in a little bit more on technology, you've touched on a few things, QR codes and pearls. Uh, I think there's certainly been a lot of technology advancement, both on the uh, part of the mail that consumers interact with, as well as on the backside, right, and on the things that go into creating the mail and distributing the mail. So what are some of the things that stand out to you that you've seen evolve over the last few years?
Um, well, I think from the creation standpoint, the tools that are available now allow some organizations to use direct mail where in the past they wouldn't have been able to do it. They didn't have the capabilities in house to handle the all the things that had to go into a direct mail campaign. They didn't have the time. They didn't have the money to do all of that. The development of the tools that make it easier to create direct mail to begin with, and make it economical for pretty much any organization to do that, I think has then opened the door for a lot of companies that maybe were kind of locked out of that in the past. The other thing that really excites me is triggered communications. When you can time a communication to a customer to arrive at exactly the right time, then your response rate just skyrockets because you're in touch with what those people need at the time that they're needing it. So you can use lots of different criteria to figure out what that timing is. It can be, a person's age. Anyone who has turned age 65 understands this quite well because they're getting deluged with Medicare offers. Changes in credit score when people move. Uh, when was their last purchase, when a warranty is about to expire on something that they bought from you before. There's like tons of different things that you can use to trigger a communication that arrives at just the right time that says, oh, how do these guys know? I was just thinking about that. So that's really great. And you can use behavioral kind of triggers as well, like when maybe when someone has abandoned a shopping cart. They were on your site, they put things in the cart, they didn't follow through and place the order. Yes, you can send them a follow up email, but then again, you're one of probably 150 or 200 emails that person got that day, so they may not have a chance to respond to that. Whereas a direct mail postcard kind of gets their attention, especially if it's personalized to what it was they were shopping to, which we can do. So those kinds of things are pretty exciting to me. That it's something that you can take mail to a new level. Besides, and it's a long ways away from what we used to call spray and pray, where you would just mail to everyone in a zip code, knowing full well that a lot of those people were not in your market, that they would never buy from you, and it was an entire waste. But that was the only thing that you could do. Now, not only can we target the right people based upon what we know about them, demographic information, psychographic information, buyer history, all those kinds of things, but we can also time that so that we know exactly when is the right time in order to approach them with an offer. So I think those are the things that in direct mail that really get me going now. Is I see just tons of possibilities there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, on that to that point, I think that so much of the investment that has taken place in marketing technology in general that operates in other channels other than direct mail, such as marketing automation platforms, uh, because
Mhm.
companies have invested so much there. There's now all this infrastructure that enables that triggering concept. Data is being captured and normalized and fed into these platforms, so that marketers can initiate these automated workflows to trigger different types of communications, whether they're digital, email, or direct mail, and time those messages, or or to your point earlier about onboarding and offboarding, uh, you know, capturing behavior and or lack of behavior. If people have stopped engaging, then change the channel and have a trigger handle that automatically. And so that layer of software that is now there is something that we're finding with our customers to be a gold mine of new use cases for direct mail, in particular these triggered communications, as you were talking about.
Right, right. Well, and the other thing that makes it possible to do that is with systems like Postalytics allow you to uh, send small mailings, right? In the past, when people did direct mail, you were talking thousands and thousands of mail pieces in order to get your per piece price down to an affordable level, and you had to have at least 500 pieces to get to the postage rates that you wanted to get. So, but with a solution like Postal Links, where you can send out a mailing of one based upon a trigger, that then allows you to use that channel, where in the past maybe you were going to say the only way for me to do this is to do everything manually. I've got to sit down, figure out who it is that's going to be contacted today. I have to generate these mail pieces. I have to print it, fold it, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, get it to the mail, into the postal carrier. All those kinds of things, are in direct contrast to where you want to go, which is automate everything. So I think that's a huge advantage as well, is that you can now mail in smaller quantities and then take advantage of that channel that maybe you couldn't before.
That's right. That's right. And you don't have to worry about the complexity of the postal service, and the demands of commercial printers to have high volumes in order to make things economically feasible. So
Yep.
you're absolutely right. It's a big factor in this whole thing. On the other side of the coin, what are the things that hold people back from deploying direct mail in your observation?
I think that a lot of people believe that direct mail is too difficult and too expensive. It's a flawed perception, but it's there, and it's there because it was too difficult and too expensive. That's the way things were done. Not realizing the impact of automation and digital printing has had on this communication channel, I think, is something that keeps people from even anticipating using that as part of their communication strategies. I mean, when you think about it, in the old days, you had to coordinate with all these entities. You had a copywriter who wrote your copy. You had a graphic artist to create the images. You had a print shop that had to print the items. Sometimes a separate mailing organization that did that. You had the U.S. Postal Service. So you had all these entities that you had to work with in order to get this done. Then you had minimum sizes that you had to deal with. Then you had this length of time, which was months, in order to plan and execute a campaign. So all those kinds of things, if that's the way a marketer is thinking today, that this is what it takes to do direct mail, it's no wonder that maybe they haven't dipped their toes into the technology that we have today, because they just didn't understand, that it's there and it's available to them, and that it's a lot easier now than it used to be. Um, uh, so so I think, in answer to your question, why aren't people using direct mail more? What's keeping them from? I think that's part of it. The other is, they've been focused on the electronic communications. It's been a lot of development along those lines, as you mentioned. It's connected with all the marketing automation systems that are there. So those are all built into those. So you have that, so it's easy, and you don't have to focus on segmentation or on filtering out unlikely buyers, because it costs more to do that than it does just to send a message to everyone, because it's so cheap. So that focus on uh, uh, on the electronic alternatives, I think, has generated an entire generation of marketers that don't appreciate what mail can do for them. Now, direct mail is still an option for everyone, and it is something that produces results, but it does take some work in order to do it correctly, because nobody wants to waste money on direct mail. It is more expensive. There's a uh, plus and minus on both sides of that. Your response rates are probably going to be higher. Your ROI could be higher on a direct mail campaign than it would be on a mass email campaign, but it's going to cost you as well. So you want to do what you can in order to minimize the waste. And there's lots of ways to do that, and tools available to help you with those kind of things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think part of what we're trying to do as a company, as Postalytics, but also with this podcast, is really to get the message out that, a lot of the friction that has traditionally been in the direct mail process is now being stripped away by tools like Postalytics and others that have made those barriers that are in the minds of many marketers really no longer valid. And so, um, I love to use that word friction, and we're trying to find little spots of friction in our app at all times, and just trying to remove that, so that campaigns and the analytics associated with the campaigns are there in easy, and and so by getting the friction out of the equation, hopefully we can change these perceptions. um, you kind of touched on what's going on kind of in the minds of a lot of marketers, and as it relates to electronic media and the web and email and everything. Not too long ago, many people, including myself, thought that direct mail was dying. And so, what's changed?
Yeah, there's a few things, I think, Dennis, that have contributed to this kind of resurgence in interest in direct mail. One, like we've been talking about all day, is the improvement in the tools and the product that we can put out, with more personalized content, with variable data substitution, with segmentation. All those kinds of things have made the end result better. So what's happened is that the response rates have started to climb, and we can see this by some statistics that are compiled by the Direct Marketing Association and ANA and those others that have been watching this, and you can see over the course of years that the response rate for direct mail has been improving, and I think that's directly correlated to a better product, to the mail getting better, to being able to filter your mailing list better, to personalize things, and that's turning into a better response rate. So I think that's one thing that I think is fueled as people are paying attention to that and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, mail that we thought was on its way out is actually starting to improve its performance." So I think that's part of it. Um, the other thing is what I would call digital fatigue. With email and text messages and online ads and social media ads being so easy to do, they've been overdone, and it's been overwhelming to a lot of consumers. And as a result, no surprise, they've learned to tune those out. And that's either with their own mind, they're just ignoring them, or they're using tools like ad blockers and spam filters to keep them from even seeing those messages to begin with. So I think that's had an effect on that as well. And with so many ads coming at a person, it's hard to get attention out of that mass of communications. I think I mentioned there's maybe two pieces of direct mail in a postal mailbox a day on average, and hundreds of emails. So it just makes that more sense. And the pandemic made it worse. Suddenly, companies that wanted to market their products and services found that all their employees were working from home, so were missing this kind of infrastructure that they had in their own organizations. Plus, there were supply chain issues. Plus, the large commercial printers maybe were struggling to be able to fulfill their requirements for their customers. So they turned to digital messaging, big time. The volumes of electronic messages just mushroomed during the pandemic there, and people just got overwhelmed, and I think that helped uh, to make some marketers realize that you know while they and everyone else was doing the only thing that they could during that period of time, it just made it more difficult to get attention for their brand. And so now they're moving back into direct mail, and there's been lots of articles written by myself and by other people that demonstrate the ability for people to use direct mail in a different way, to use it in conjunction with those other communication channels, and have it make a difference in achieving their objectives.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. We like to use a phrase that you should be marketing in the uncrowded mailbox. And you know, well, despite the fact direct mail is coming back, the mailbox is far less crowded with folks that have turned to electronic statements for their credit cards and other things, their electronic statements for their financial accounts, for so many communications that are not marketing related have kind of moved to the electronic world, and then personal communications are rarely done through the mail anymore. So what's left are those marketing messages. And so because you're interacting with each one of those things, and there's less competition, you're spending more time, it has more impact. And so there's so many of those factors that are all kind of coming together at the same time here.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
wrapping up, Mike, if you have one piece of advice that you could give marketers about direct mail, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it would be start thinking differently about direct mail. Use the technology that you've got to make mail better. I've written dozens of articles about making mail better. I've been on the stump about that for a long time, because for a long time we couldn't. There were roadblocks in our way. It was when color printing first came out, it was too expensive. Nobody wanted to do it for direct mail because it was too expensive to use. And that's all changed. So all those kinds of things have come together now to allow companies to use mail in a different way, and that means that they've got to just integrate the physical mail with the other things that they're doing in order to promote their brands, and that's easy and possible to do now. Understanding that the mail does some things that digital messaging cannot. Um, you just talked about that, retrieving mail from the mailbox, holding it in your hands, reading it with your eyes. There's been a number of studies shown that increases retention and comprehension. It activates different areas of the brain. They've actually done brain studies on this. They call it haptics. The physical touching of things that makes a difference, and brings a different element into that message that you can't get in the electronic realm. A postcard that you send can be stuck on the refrigerator for weeks. Daily reminders of a brand, text messages and emails just don't have that. So my advice would be to look at mail with through the lens of what today's technology can offer you and what you can do with it, and as part of a not as the only channel, but as part of your omni-channel, multi-channel efforts that you're going to use in order to promote your brand or develop leads or win back customers or whatever it is that you want to do. Mail can be a part of that.
Very well said. Completely agree. It's time to think differently. And if you just follow the same playbook as everybody else, you're not going to stand out. And so love it. So Mike, uh, this has been great. Really appreciate you coming on board today and talking to the audience. Um, if folks want to get in touch with you to learn more about what you have going on with Print Mail Consultants and your content business, how would folks get in touch?
I'm pretty easy to find. I've got two websites for the content marketing end of things. It's pmccontentservices.com. That's Paul Mike Charlie Content Services, all one word. And there's a couple of free tools there. They're pretty interesting. One is a mini course about how to create and use customer case studies. And the other is a complete playbook for someone who wants to start a content marketing strategy in their own small and medium sized companies. It's called Level the Playing Field, and it's all about using those tools and technologies that are affordable and available to you to compete with your competitors who may be larger and more well funded. So those are available there. And then on the consulting side, it's printmailconsultants.com. And you can always find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm there. Or check out the magazine that I write for. It's Mailing Systems Technology. That's a free magazine that you can get. And the column is called In the Trenches with Mike Porter. So all different ways to find me. And I'll talk to anybody that has a question or has some ideas about direct mail for their organization. They just want to run some things right by me. I'm happy to do that at any time. I'm easily found.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Mike Porter, longtime direct mail print industry consultant and expert. Really appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to talking again very soon.
Thank you, Dennis. Happy to be with you.